It was 2:13 a.m. when I woke to the sound of someone tapping on my bedroom window. At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling the glass. But then it came again, 3 slow, deliberate taps. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. My apartment's on the 2nd floor. The streetlight outside cast a pale orange glow across the blinds, just enough to outline the shadow of a figure standing there. My heart slammed so hard, I could feel it in my throat. I reached for my phone, but my fingers were trembling so much I nearly dropped it. Before I could dial, a voice came through the glass low, urgent and completely calm. "Don't turn on the lights. Just listen to me." Every hair on my arm stood on end. I pulled the blinds a fraction of an inch. A man stood outside on the fire escape. His face was mostly in shadow, but I could see he was wearing a dark coat and gloves. His eyes, I don't know how to explain it, but they didn't look like a stranger's. They looked like someone who'd known me for a long time. "I don't have much time," he said. "Someone's coming for you. Tonight." I almost laughed. It sounded like a line from a bad thriller, but there was no humor in his voice. "Why?" I asked. "Because of your father," he said. My mouth went dry. My father had died when I was 6, and as far as I knew, he'd been a perfectly ordinary man who worked at a shipping company. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. He glanced over his shoulder like he was checking the street. "Your father wasn't who you think he was. And neither are the people you think you know. Pack a bag right now. Only what you can carry. I'll explain later." I shook my head. "No, this is insane." The man leaned closer to the glass. "If you stay here, you'll be dead by morning." Something in the way he said it, not loud, not threatening, just certain, made my chest tighten. Before I could answer, headlights swept across the street below. A black SUV rolled to a stop. "They're early," he muttered. 2 men in dark clothing stepped out, their movements quick and deliberate. My voice cracked. "Who are they?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket and slid it through the small gap in the window, a folded piece of paper. "Go to this address. Burn this paper after you read it. If I'm not there when you arrive, wait for me. And whatever you do, don't talk to the police." I looked down at the paper, but by the time I looked back up, he was gone, vanished into the shadows of the fire escape. Below, one of the men from the SUV was already crossing the street toward my building. That's when I made my first mistake. I waited. I stared at the paper in my hand like it might give me answers just by holding it. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too quiet, like the air itself was listening. The man from the SUV was getting closer, his footsteps steady, unhurried, confident. He wasn't sneaking. He didn't need to. I backed away from the window and peered through the peephole in my door. Nothing in the hallway. But I couldn't stop thinking about the man on the fire escape. His voice had been so certain, his eyes so focused. Whoever he wasn't just some random intruder trying to scare me. I unfolded the paper. A street name I recognized. But no number, just Warehouse 17, written in sharp, deliberate handwriting. No city, no directions, just those 2 words. I stuffed the paper in my pocket and grabbed my backpack from the closet. I didn't know what to take, so I went for instinct: wallet, phone charger, a change of clothes, flashlight, the old pocket knife my dad had given me when I was 12. I hesitated for a second, then grabbed the small wooden box from my desk drawer, the one with the few keepsakes I had from my father. By the time I slung the bag over my shoulder, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. 2 sets, maybe 3. They were moving slowly, like they knew exactly which door they were looking for. I turned off every light, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. My building was old, with creaky floors and thin walls. If I tried to sneak down the hallway, they'd hear me. That left one option: the fire escape. I eased the window open and stepped onto the slick metal grate. The night air was cold, sharp in my lungs. Down on the street, the SUV idled, exhaust curling in the glow of the streetlight. The second man from the vehicle was leaning against the hood, scanning the building with a casualness that felt more dangerous than if he'd been holding a weapon. I started down the fire escape, keeping low. My boots slipped once on the wet metal, the sound echoing far too loud. I froze. A door opened somewhere below. I took the next flight faster, my breath clouding in the cold. The fire escape ended in a narrow alley between my building and the next. And as I reached it, I heard a voice deep, clipped speaking into a phone. Yeah, he's here. I didn't wait to find out who he was talking about. I ran. The alley opened onto a side street, dimly lit and empty, except for a flickering neon sign above a closed diner. I ducked around the corner and kept going until my lungs burned. Only when I reached the bus stop 3 blocks away did I risk looking back. No one was there. The bus arrived in a rush of brakes and engine noise. I climbed aboard, dropped into a seat near the back, and tried to steady my breathing. There were only a few other passengers. A man in a baseball cap staring out the window, a woman with a shopping bag on her lap, and a kid scrolling through his phone. None of them looked at me. I pulled the paper from my pocket again. Warehouse 17. I knew the street it was down by the docks, a run of old shipping buildings, most of them abandoned or repurposed into storage units. I'd been there once or twice years ago, helping a friend move furniture. At night, the place would be deserted. The bus ride felt longer than it should have. Every time we slowed for a stop, my eyes darted to the door, half expecting the men from the SUV to get on. They never did. I got off 3 blocks from the docks. The air down there smelled like salt and rust, the tang of metal and old water. My footsteps echoed on the wet pavement as I made my way toward the street with the warehouses. When I found number 17, it was exactly as I remembered: a squat, windowless building with corrugated metal walls and a chain-link fence. The gate was padlocked, but the fence had a section where the chain had been cut and wired back loosely, just enough for someone to slip through. Inside the yard, the warehouse loomed over me, its shadow swallowing the ground. A single light above the side door flickered weakly. I knocked once, twice. Nothing. I was about to knock again when I heard a faint rustling from inside, followed by the creak of hinges. The door opened just enough for me to see a sliver of a face. It wasn't the man from the fire escape. "Get in," the stranger said. I stepped inside. The air was cold and smelled faintly of oil and dust. The door shut behind me with a final sounding thud. The man who'd let me in was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his temple down to his jaw. He studied me for a long moment, then said, "You look like him." "Like who?" "Your father." I swallowed. "You knew him?" He nodded slowly. "We all did, and now they know about you." Before I could ask what that meant, he motioned for me to follow him deeper into the warehouse. We passed rows of shelves stacked with crates, most of them marked with faded shipping labels. At the far end, a single table sat under a hanging light bulb, papers and maps spread across it. "That man who came to your window," the stranger said. "He's one of us. Or he was. Things have changed." "Changed how?" "They found him. That means they'll find you. But if you're willing, we can stop running." I opened my mouth to respond, but then I heard footsteps outside, slow and deliberate, just like before. The stranger froze, his eyes narrowing. "They're here." He reached under the table and pulled out a small, battered metal case, shoving it into my hands. "This is why your father died. Keep it safe, and whatever you do, don't open it here." The footsteps stopped right outside the door, and then the light went out. When the light went out, the darkness inside the warehouse was absolute. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, but I could hear everything: the faint scuff of boots on concrete, the subtle groan of the metal door shifting in its frame, the slow inhale of the stranger beside me. "Stay quiet," he whispered, so low I almost thought I imagined it. The footsteps outside moved closer, then stopped. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I held the metal case tighter. the edges biting into my palms. Whoever these people were, they'd come for this, and I had no idea why. A single beam of light pierced the darkness, the narrow glow of a flashlight sweeping across the shelves. It slid over the walls, the floor, the crates, and then paused on me. "Run!" the stranger hissed. He shoved me toward the far corner just as the door burst open. Two men stepped in, their silhouettes sharp against the light from outside. I didn't wait to see their faces. I ran, dodging between shelves, the case clutched to my chest. Behind me, the sound of pursuit was immediate boots striking the floor in quick, heavy rhythm. The warehouse was a maze, and I took turns at random, hoping they didn't know the layout any better than I did. I saw a narrow side door ahead and bolted for it. My shoulder slammed into it, and it gave way, spilling me out into a narrow alley behind the building. The air outside was freezing, the smell of salt water stronger here. I kept running. The dock stretched out ahead, empty and quiet except for the lap of dark water against the pilings. A single street lamp flickered overhead, casting long, broken shadows across the wet pavement. I glanced back once two figures were following, their strides unhurried, like they knew I couldn't escape. There was nowhere to go but forward. I reached the edge of the pier, the water black and deep below. My breath came in ragged gasps. I could hear them getting closer. Then a voice from the shadows to my right. "This way." I turned and saw a woman standing beside an open maintenance hatch in the pier's surface. She was tall, wearing a dark coat and gloves, her hair tied back. I didn't know her face, but I recognized her eyes. I'd seen them in a photograph my mother kept in a drawer, a photo I'd never understood. I didn't have time to question it. I ran to her, and she pulled me into the hatch, shutting it behind us just as the footsteps reached the pier. Inside, it was dimly lit by a single bulb, the walls damp concrete. She led me down a narrow tunnel, her pace fast but steady. "You're his son," she said without looking back. "My father?" I asked, my voice still shaky. She nodded. "He worked with us before everything went bad." "Who are you?" "My name's Claire, and right now, you need to listen to me. That case you're holding, don't open it until you're somewhere safe. And safe doesn't mean your apartment. They've probably been watching you for weeks." I thought about the SUV outside my building, the man at my window, the paper with the warehouse address. "Why me?" "Because your father trusted you, even if you don't understand why yet." We reached a ladder at the end of the tunnel. Claire climbed first, pushing open a heavy hatch above us. Cold air rushed in, along with the sound of traffic. When I followed her up, we were in an empty parking lot under a freeway overpass. A car was parked nearby, an old black sedan, its engine idling. She opened the passenger door for me. "Get in." We drove in silence for several minutes. I kept glancing at her, trying to place her in my father's life. There had been so many questions. When he died, questions my mother wouldn't answer. The official story was an accident. But if what Claire was saying was true, that was a lie. Finally, I said, "You said you worked with him. Doing what?" Her eyes stayed on the road. "Protecting people, and keeping certain things out of the wrong hands." "What things?" "You'll see soon enough." We pulled into a narrow alley behind a row of boarded-up shops. She killed the engine, scanned the area, then nodded for me to follow. Inside one of the shops, the shelves were empty. Dust thick in the air. She led me to the back, where a false wall swung open to reveal a hidden room. It was small, but clean, with a table, a couple of chairs, and maps pinned to the walls. A single laptop sat on the table, its screen dark. "This is where you'll stay tonight," she said. "They won't find you here." I set the case down on the table, its weight somehow heavier now that we'd stopped moving. Claire glanced at it but didn't touch it. "I'll get food," she said. "Don't leave this room, and don't answer the door for anyone but me." She left, the false wall closing behind her. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the case. My father's death, the man at my window, the chase through the warehouse, it all felt like a blur. And yet, Here I was, holding the thing at the center of it. I reached out and ran my fingers over the dented metal. The latch was simple. I could open it in seconds. I told myself to wait, to listen to Claire, but I was my father's son. I opened the case. Inside was a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with dense, slanted handwriting. Maps, dates, coordinates, lists of names I didn't recognize. And in the middle, tucked between two pages, was a photograph. It was my father, standing beside Claire, both of them younger, smiling. And between them, a man whose face made my stomach drop. It was the man from my window. And written on the back of the photo, in my father's handwriting, were 3 words. He will come. Before I could process it, I heard the faint creak of the false wall opening. Only Claire hadn't come back yet. The sound of the false wall swinging open froze me in place. I shoved the notebook back into the case and closed it, my heartbeat hammering against my ribs. The figure that stepped through wasn't Claire. He was taller, broader, his movements unhurried. The overhead light caught his face, and it was him, the man from my window, the man in the photograph. He smiled faintly, like he'd been expecting me to be here. "You've grown," he said, his voice low but steady. "You have your father's eyes." My mouth was dry. "Who are you?" He stepped closer, his boots making soft thuds against the floor. "My name isn't important. What matters is that I knew your father better than anyone, better than your mother ever did." I instinctively stepped back, my hand gripping the case handle. "Why were you watching me?" "Because," he said, "your father left you. Something dangerous, and he trusted you'd be smart enough to keep it safe." "You mean this?" I lifted the case slightly. His eyes flicked to it. "Exactly that, but I see you've already opened it." I didn't answer, but he must have seen it on my face. His smile widened, not warmly, but like a predator closing in. "That notebook," he continued, "isn't just names and dates. It's a record of every operation we ever ran together. Every contact, every safe house, every debt owed. It's worth more than you can imagine. And in the wrong hands..." He let the sentence trail off, but I understood. I glanced toward the wall, wondering if I could get past him to the door. He noticed. "If you run, they'll find you. If you give it to me, I can make you disappear somewhere safe. No one will bother you again." My pulse was racing. Claire said not to trust anyone. His expression tightened. "Claire," he said, almost spitting the name. "She's the reason your father's dead." I shook my head. "That's not true." "You think you know her? She sold him out. The night he died, she led him straight into an ambush. Ask her yourself if you live long enough." Before I could answer, the wall creaked again. This time, it was Claire. She froze when she saw him. Her hand went into her coat and came out holding a gun. "Step away from him," she said. He didn't move. "Still playing the hero, Claire? You have 30 seconds to leave," she said, "or I end this right now." I looked between them, my mind spinning. "One of you is lying." "Which one?" They both spoke at once. "Me," she said. "I'm telling you the truth." "I am," he said, his voice calm. Claire kept the gun steady. "Don't listen to him. Your father died protecting that notebook. You give it to him, and you undo everything your father worked for." He stepped closer. "She's lying. She killed him herself." I felt my grip on the case tightening. My father's handwriting echoed in my mind. "He will come." Not, "Don't trust him." Not, "Run from him." Just a warning that he'd appear. And now he had. "Why would my father write that?" I asked. Neither of them answered. They just stared at each other, the air between them charged with years of history I didn't understand. Finally, Claire said, "We don't have time for this. They found us." A low rumble vibrated through the floor, vehicles pulling up outside, boots on pavement, Voices shouting orders. He glanced toward the sound. "They're here for the notebook." Claire looked at me. "You have to decide. Now." The pounding on the shop's outer door started heavy. Repeated blows. My fingers hesitated on the case latch. And then I did something neither of them expected. I opened the case, took the notebook, and tore a single page from the middle. I shoved it in my pocket, then snapped the case shut and tossed it to Claire. "You want it?" I said. "Take it." She caught it, surprise flickering across her face. The man took a step forward, but I held up the torn page. "This," I said, "is what you really want. It's the one thing my father made sure to hide inside the thing he knew everyone would chase. You two can fight over the rest. I'm leaving." The outer door gave way with a crash. Shouts filled the air. I bolted past both of them, through the false wall, and out into the alley. I didn't look back. I just ran, the page crumpled in my pocket. Later, when I finally stopped and unfolded it, I saw what was written there. A set of coordinates, and below them, in my father's handwriting, "If you're reading this, you're ready to know the truth." I didn't know what I'd find when I followed them. But I knew one thing: this wasn't over. Not even close.